GH Deck Building. I am your host, Demo, and this is 5 tips for playing your Commander deck. Many moons ago, I made my video about 5 rules for Commander deck building, one of the most viewed videos on my channel, I'm happy to say, and now I'm giving 5 tips for actually playing the game of Commander. Mistakes I see people making all the time in a game, and I'm giving you some advice to hopefully make your games a little more successful. So let's start out first off with don't play a card until you need it. This is one thing I see all the time. Everyone is so quick to rush out those cards. If you have a card in your hand that is a mana value that you're able to cast, you just cast it, right? I see this so often, and all you're doing, particularly if the card is one that people aren't going to want to see, is you're just making it a target to get removed before you can actually use it. So what do I mean? Well, one of the worst plays I think I've ever seen in a Commander game, I've seen it a few times, is first turn Mana Crypt and don't use it. Why would you do that? I've seen it a few times, and people just are so impatient. They just want to run that stuff out there super quick. I mean, first of all, again, you're breaking rule number 1 for Commander, which is don't make yourself a target. You're making yourself a target on turn 1. But if you were going to do that and then cast a Rhystic Study, at least you're getting something out of it. Casting a Mana Crypt on turn 1 and not actually using the mana is a complete waste of time. For one, you can always cast your Mana Crypt because it costs 0 mana, but also it does you 3 damage on your upkeep, possibly, right? So you're literally just taking the chance of dealing yourself damage and having no upside to it at all. Last game I played, I had a Skull Clamp in my opening hand. So of course, play my land, tap it, throw my Skull Clamp out there, right? No, I did not do that. Why? Because Skull Clamp absolutely is a target for removal in a Commander game, and why would I throw it out there if I can't actually use it right away? A card like that you know is going to be a removal magnet, if it's not actually doing anything, don't throw it out there. I'm going to wait until I have a few creatures in play before I cast my Skull Clamp. It only costs 1 mana. I'm not going to save myself that much time by casting it on turn 1, and it's just going to become a target, possibly before I can even use it. So I'm going to wait till I have a few creatures in play before I drop my Skull Clamp. Then I can clamp a few creatures, draw a bunch of cards, and then if someone removes it, okay, well, I drew like 4 or 6 cards off of it. I got enough bang for my buck, no problem. Similarly, my number 2 piece of advice here is hide your combo. And I guess if you are in a play group where you're playing with the same guys all the time, yeah, that doesn't work so well, because obviously they know it's coming. But outside of that scenario, try to hide what you're doing in your deck. I mean, just in general, hiding whatever you're doing in your deck is a good idea. Again, back to rule number 1 for me. It all starts with your commander, right? If you have a commander that has a very obvious build around, everyone's going to know what you're doing. Particularly though with a combo, I think it's way better to hide that combo by having a commander that is either not super obvious or also doesn't make you a target. I talked about in my video talking about the most popular commanders and how they win, how a Will Held deck typically wins with combat damage. Yeah, I mean, I think it does. Had a couple people say, actually, it's the combo. You're going to combo off with that deck. And I thought, well, what's the combo? And one guy said, oh, Gravecrawler combo. I'm like, okay. I mean, Will Held's a better zombie commander in general, but if you're just winning by comboing off, why would you use Will Held? Will Held is a popular and also powerful commander that's going to make you a target. Why not use a commander like Grimgrin? In fact, Grimgrin even has a sack outlet on him. Why not use him? He's less popular. In fact, a lot of newer commander players have probably never even seen him before. Use him as your commander, right? It's a great way to hide your combo by having a commander that is very anonymous. No one's going to be worried about you if you have a very underwhelming commander in the command zone. You have a white-blue deck where you want to assemble some sort of combo? Jedit O'Janin should be your commander. That guy's awful. People are going to look at that in the command zone and laugh, and they're not going to take you seriously at all until you get your combo assembled and win. But of course, it also goes back to the first point about not running those pieces out, right? If I have a couple of pieces of a combo that I'm trying to assemble, or not necessarily even a game-winning combo, just an engine that I'm trying to put together, don't run those pieces out until you think you're close to doing it. I have a Maskwood Nexus deck. The last time I played that deck, I actually tutored for the Maskwood Nexus on like turn 3, but it sat in my hand for like 4 turns. I'm not going to run it out until I can actually really start using it. So if you have some combo or engine you're trying to assemble, some little trick you're trying to do, gotta wait for that right moment. Try to conceal what you're doing. On a similar note of concealing what you're doing, don't tap out. That is one of my biggest strategies whenever playing a commander game. Whenever I'm playing, I almost never tap out, especially later in a game. I mean, obviously early in the game, everyone's just kind of doing stuff. You're all just casting your ramp and your mana rocks and trying to get your board. But after about turn 5, I would say, that's when I start always leaving mana open. Why? Keeps your opponents guessing, right? They have no idea what answer you might have in your hand. Especially if you got like one blue or one white mana open. Obviously your opponents are thinking maybe he's got a counter spell or maybe he's got a removal spell. So I'm going to be cautious. You would be surprised how much it works. Someone's got a Blightsteel Colossus in play and you have one white mana open. I guarantee you it's probably not coming at you because they're worried you might have a swords or a path in hand. I love when my opponents tap out, and especially when all my opponents tap out. Man, I'm just like, sweet, I can just do whatever I want, and I don't have to worry about my opponent's interaction. Again, this goes back to the first part where people just really like doing lots of stuff, right? Commander players like doing stuff. So they just want to empty their hand. They want to do as much as they possibly can on their turn, which typically means tapping out. And it's great to be efficient with your mana, but at the same time, don't underestimate how effective it can be just to leave a mana or two open to let your opponents sweat about what possibility you might have in your hand as an answer. Getting to number 4, and this is a pretty simple one, block more. It really does kind of blow my mind how frivolous people are with their life totals. We hear all the time, life is a resource in the Commander format, right? You have 40 life, so that means you can play around with it a little bit, which is true, but at the same time, you don't want to completely throw caution to the wind. Your life total does matter, right? Most games you will lose in Commander, it is your life total being reduced to 0, whether it be that guy casting a giant exsanguinate. Guess what? If your life total's 10 instead of 40, he doesn't have to put as much mana into it. If it's that Crater Hoof Behemoth attack and your life is 40 instead of 10, he's going to have to wait till he's got a few more creatures in play before he can finish you off. Life does actually matter. And when it comes to blocking, I am shocked how often people just like, yeah, I'll just take it. I won't block. Why aren't you blocking? What are you concerned about? First off, if you have a utility creature in play, like a Wood Elves or an Okeomancer or something like that, I mean, it's probably done its duty and you've gotten what you wanted out of it. I mean, I guess maybe if you're a blinking deck or something, you don't want to lose it necessarily. But a lot of times people will just take 2 or 3 damage when they could easily just throw their Wood Elves in the way, and I'm not sure why. People also don't like blocking with their bigger, better creatures or their commander because, you never know what your opponents are doing. Maybe they got some combat tricks up their sleeve. Sure, but those combat tricks could be they're hoping you don't block so they could do something else, right? Aha, I got a Hatred in my hand or I got a Berserk in my hand. Now I've just killed you. So you also have to be wary of that as well, right? I guess I could also tack on here. You should be attacking more, right? If you got like an Eternal Witness in play and you're not putting it in your deck to attack with, but 2 power, why not swing with it? Why not knock your opponents down by a couple points if you can? So maybe people should be attacking more as well, because likely towards the end of the game, those few life points will actually make a big difference. My final tip for Commander players is don't get bullied. What does this mean? Well, don't get bullied in life is a pretty good philosophy to have, but in a Commander game, I find people can get bullied a lot. I'm using the word bullied here. A lot of other people might just say, it's politics. That's how the game works. I don't know about all that. I mean, politics is a bit of an ambiguous term. It can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. For me, it's like, okay, wheeling and dealing and all of that. The bullied part comes in where you better not attack me or else. Basically that sort of scenario, right? That I'm sure we've all experienced before. I mean, I guess you could call it blackmailing maybe or something else, but we've all experienced the player who likes to essentially threaten people into doing as they're told. I don't know how that's not bullying. That's what I call it, but don't attack me or else you're going to regret it, right? We've all heard someone say that before in a Commander game. For me, that makes me want to attack them more. That's the way I look at it. And in fact, let's go back to the Blightsteel Colossus and dude's got 1 white mana open. I'm actually the opposite. I know I'm going to go back on what I said here, but if that's me with the Blightsteel Colossus, I'm actually going to attack the guy with 1 white mana open, even though he's like, better not attack me. Even if he's not bluffing, I don't care. I'm going to call him on his bluff. And if he does have the swords, okay, great. I just gained a bunch of life and I got the swords out of your hand. For me, attacking the player who doesn't have an answer might actually be the worst scenario. Even though I'm losing my creature, I'm giving the guy who already has an advantage advantage, even more of an advantage by not attacking them. That's the way it sort of works in my head. Despite the fact that I'm playing a fun, casual commander game, I am still trying to win, right? You do have to try to win in a commander game. It is sort of important for everyone in the game to be trying to win, or else it doesn't really work so well. And if one guy just has to sit there and go, "Don't attack me or else," to every single person, he doesn't even have to do anything. He can just sit there verbally threatening everyone and then eventually win the game because no one will attack him, right? So don't let that work on you. That's my advice. Don't let people bully you into making decisions. Just try to make the best one. That is it. That is all. 5 tips for playing in the commander format. Maybe a little bit of deck building advice in there as well. This is the way I do it. Works pretty good for me. You guys let me know what you think in the comments below. That is it for today, and thanks for tuning in.